Good morning and welcome back to Herd Immunity, where wisdom is your best defense. I want to explain something to you today which is relatively complicated, but that I think is important to understand. So I will try and explain it simply. The topic is antibody-dependent enhancement. That sounds like a mouthful, doesn't it? It is. Let me see what I can do to make it clear. When your immune system, which is composed of many different white blood cells that are made in the bone marrow, they come pouring out through the bloodstream. Some of them station themselves in the lymph nodes, some of them are in the spleen, many of them are just circulating in the blood, a lot of them just sit in the tissues and organs of your body. All of these cells play a role in defending your body from invaders. Think of your immune system as the Department of Defense. Okay. So your body is now invaded with SARS-CoV-2. And the Department of Defense shows up and makes antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, very specific antibodies to this very specific virus. Think of these antibodies that are pouring out of the white blood cells now as a kind of policeman or soldier that grabs the virus by the scruff of the neck, okay? Grabs it and drags it off and says, prepare to die, okay? And those antibodies, okay, they're like the Marines, okay? They are called neutralizing antibodies, okay? They're the big, strong guys, and they're very effective. Let's say, and this is true with many viruses, but particularly with the SARS and the MERS and the SARS-CoV-2 viruses, that in addition to sending out the Marines, these white blood cells also produce less effective antibodies. Think of them as the local militia. They mean well, they turn out, they show up for their part of the job. They're not quite as effective. Their grip is not as firm, okay? And their ability to drag the virus off for destruction is not as powerful. They are non-neutralizing antibodies, okay? Now, your immune system is able to overcome the COVID infection, and those antibodies, that information, is then stored for future reference. If you ever need it again, okay, that information is stored, and it is stored in a group of cells called plasma cells. Think of plasma cells as an external hard drive. Information that you want to have someplace separate and safe, okay? Let's say you then bump into SARS again, because it's everywhere. Maybe there's a variant, okay? And your body has the ability at this point to immediately produce the antibodies because it's been there before. It knows that one. So the neutralizing antibodies, SEAL Team 6, the Marines, okay, the 101st Airborne, they all show up and they are out there doing their best to neutralize, drag off the SARS virus again for destruction. The local militia, they get called up again, the non-neutralizing antibodies. This is where things get interesting, tricky, sinister, and very worrisome. Some of these viruses, like the SARS-CoV-2 virus, have the ability to interact with the non-neutralizing antibodies, the militia, because they're pouring out too. They're like, okay, yeah, you need us again, we're here, okay, fine. They have the ability to interact with the non-neutralizing militia in such a way that they are able to use the militia, the non-neutralizing antibodies, to get back into the cells and reproduce, okay? The whole point is for your immune system to get those guys out of there, one way or another. But now, the virus is able to use the non-neutralizing antibodies to get back into the cells and reproduce. You have antibody-induced enhancement. Now you've got viruses that are being fed into the cells by the non-neutralizing antibodies whose job was theoretically to keep them away. But no, they've turned on you. And so what you have is this explosion of viruses, not only that came in uninvited again, because you bumped into SARS-CoV-2 again, but are now replicating and being invited to come in and replicate, okay? And you are overwhelmed. And we have seen this in animal studies. We have seen this time and again in animal studies. We've actually seen it in clinical studies with other viruses. Antibody-dependent enhancement, ADE, is a real problem. I don't know to what extent it will be a clinical problem, a problem for the healthcare policy people, but it's a problem that you need to be aware of. At least have it as a piece of information and a concept that, should it come up in conversation, should it become important at some time in the future, you are familiar with it, okay? Antibody-dependent enhancement depends on the non-neutralizing antibodies that your body made when it first first encountered the SARS virus, that were relatively ineffective and then became traitors. Not that they wanted to become traitors, but the virus has a way of persuading the weak to come over to its side and be helpful. Welcome to the war. Remember, the two best medicines are love and mercy. And until I see you again, God bless.